Hi everyone, it's Moonshine here. I am the host of today's AMA with OpenBox, which is the future of trusted AI and the next generation platform helping organizations deploy secure, verifiable, and governed AI agents through decentralized identity. So, through today's AMA, would cover how they intend to achieve this through real-time policy enforcement, cryptographic trust, and also how they intend to be the future of the enterprise AI. So we have Tahir here with us who would walk us through what OpenBox is all about. But before we proceed, would you mind introducing yourself and the team behind the project OpenBox?
Certainly. So yes, my name's Tahir Mahmood. Myself and my co-founder named Asim Ahmed, we met basically in late 2023, where basically Asim's background is we're both from the UK, the northern part, just north of Manchester, although I've lived most of my life in Manchester. In Dubai because he did a degree in mathematics, went into finance, joined BlackRock. He met two of his colleagues there, and they sort of left in I think 2017 and created a venture capitalist firm. And they've been investing heavily in Web3 and AI for 7 to 8 years, roughly. But in 2023, he was on a panel in Dubai. I happened to be there at the time, and when he came off the panel explaining how venture capitalists invest, how to make decisions about investing, he came off and I sort of said, I have something which I'm working on as a proof of concept. I'd love to discuss it with you and see what you think. And he very kindly sort of said, yeah, absolutely. Let me hear more about it. And the more I spoke, the more he wanted to know about me as a person first. And I think that's one clear thing that, I would say to everybody that almost every investor, venture capitalist I've met to date over my journey is interested in the team, the people, far, far beyond the idea. I think almost every one of them will say, ideas, there's a million ideas. It's the team and the people, and if they can execute, that is what they look for. So, Asim was asking me a lot about my background, who I am, where I've come from, and, I'll do the same here. And, I said to Asim, look, Asim, I'm long in the tooth. I've been doing this well over 35, 37 years. And now, we're 3 years on. I've been 40 years in the technology sector. I started coding in 1979. In the mid 80s, I was working on literally AI, operating systems, distributed processing, and I was very fortunate after I finished university in 1989. I got hired by Microsoft in the UK, and I was like employee number 7 in Europe, very early days, and my role was the technical lead for operating systems and programming languages. And when he heard that, he was like, "Oh my God, that's very, rare to meet somebody with such a long experience and having started out at such a prominent company doing something very intricate." And so I said, "Yeah, I think there's a lot to be done." And working with my proof of concept was to do with creating an AI model which was going to look at transactions as they come in on a blockchain and work out what the vulnerability score was in terms of was the transaction going to go to a smart contract that had vulnerabilities? Was it the actual smart contract that you are targeting and not a spoofed one? The sort of memory, the transaction a memory pool in the time in the node, and whether someone's trying to front run you, all these things that we know about problems in blockchain. And he sort of said, this sounds really interesting. What else is it able to do? And I said, well, what the technology will do at the moment, it's only a proof of concept, is when it pauses the transaction on a blockchain node, it will it's able to make API calls to other blockchains. It's able to call out anywhere, it doesn't matter, and bring the data back and carry the data atomically encrypted and secured or tested to the smart contract as well. So the smart contract will have a lot more information. And he sort of said, this is definitely quite groundbreaking. Nobody's thought about actually modifying the Ethereum node or adding another module into it. So it's very low level. And, his words, with your sort of background, I'm not surprised you're operating at that level in the infrastructure. So he said, look, let me introduce you to a number of venture capitalist investors to see in case, this has some legs. So we spoke with a number, and within 6 months, I think it was less than 6 months, maybe 3 months, we'd secured our pre-seed round, and we'd already worked out the design and the architecture of the product and what it should be, why we needed, how much money we needed to be able to go forward with it. And at that time, 1.7 million is what we secured, and that was for me enough to be able to build the product. So throughout 2024, we started to build the product. But at the end of 2024 is where I think the interesting part was, because we saw ChatGPT and AI really taking a foothold, OpenAI really taking off. And at the end of 2024, and I remember vividly, it was literally in our main office is in Bangkok in Thailand. Asim was there with me around Christmas, and I said to Asim, I said, look, this technology we're building, we've made it to testnet. So by October 2024, we were at testnet, private testnet, internally, and showing it to a few customers, people interested. But I said, there's a bigger play here. And Asim asked me, like, what do you mean? I said, this technology is now reminding me of my days when I was doing a heavy AI, reading papers about where AI would go. And, in the 80s, 1980s, AI was just as big, if not, I would say, bigger than it is today. The idea of, can you create a machine that can think like a human, reason like a human, was just as big. But as you can imagine, the internet didn't exist, the compute power didn't exist, but neural networks existed. I mean, they're not new. They're very old technology, created in the 60s. But certainly, people were talking about them. So I said to him, what we've created is literally the foundations of what you would need in an agent. And Asim was like, okay, where does this AI agent come in? So I explained to him the concept that there are a couple of papers from the 80s that I remember I was reading when I was working on AI in 85, 86 at a research institute called Loughborough University of Technology Computer Human Interface. And I was doing neural networks to do with vision and voice, but the idea of agents, and there was already being talked about in these papers. And I said, these agents, the problem you have is you can write an agent and it will speak to a model, a brain, and it will receive responses back. But how do we know if what we've received back from the model, the inference as we call it, when you get an inference back from an AI model, is correct, right or wrong, and whether the agent should act on it or not? And he said, an interesting question, and he said, so what do you think we can do? Well, I said, this technology we're creating on top of Ethereum is all about that a transaction comes, and before that transaction can be sent to the smart contract, we're validating that there's nothing harmful going to happen. We're in essence, using the first time I used the word, governing that transaction. And that's what an agent needs. It needs the ability that when, as a human, you give an agent a task, you give it an intent to say, go do this for me. You've got a black box. Literally, you have no clue what you're doing. And that was the first time I mentioned the word black box. So Asim said, okay, let's not exactly pivot, but let's take the technology and see how we can apply it to AI in the way you're describing. And I'll work on, and this is, his words, I'll work on how we position this, and whether by the time we get to public testnet with the blockchain technology, whether by that time we're running two races now, which one is the better one to be going forward with. So through the whole of, I'd say, the first part of 2025, I had half my team based out of Bangkok and Hanoi. That's where we are. And we have a satellite team now in Calcutta in India as well. And the team roughly right now, we're about 17 people. A majority are very hardcore engineers with more than a decade of programming experience. So what's interesting is we have a number of calls with very, very big clients. Almost all of our clients that we currently work with are worth billions. But one of the things they want to know is, do you have a real engineering team or do you have a vibe coding team? And it's funny they asked that question. So no, we sort of explained that all of our engineers are actual hardcore engineers and not TikTok engineers, as I describe it. So they always giggle. But anyway, mid 2024, 25, sorry, where we are building out both products, playing, and AI is obviously accelerating at a huge pace. I mean, you know, a GPT 3, 4, 5 is coming around, Claude, Anthropic, you know, Google is taking off, Gemini is coming around. So we see all of this, and we sort of come to the point where we're thinking, you know, what kind of size is the market? And Asim came back to me, sort of now we're looking at third quarter, autumn of 2025 with, you know, the market is huge. It's worth trillions, whereas blockchain might be worth billions. There's a market here worth trillions. So let's speak with our investors that invested in our pre-seed, and let's talk to our advisors that we have, and we have some amazing advisors on as far as the company is concerned, and get their views. So we went to ETHCC in Cannes in southern France at the end of 2025, met with all of our VCs, met with all of our advisors. And what was interesting is even most of the VCs that I would call pure Web3 were pivoting towards investing in AI as well now, because they could see AI and blockchain was coming together as well in some way. And most of them were saying, you know, this is perfect. I would definitely suggest you guys think about this in a big way, but maybe launch it as a separate product. You know, don't mesh the two together, the blockchain side. So by the end of 2025, we'd finished the product to do with the blockchain side of things and made that publicly available as a public testnet so anybody can use it. It's still there today. It's under kernel.xyz, krnl.xyz. As we push that technology forward, we actually began to enter the sort of enterprise space more, which was we saw a use of that technology integrating into Salesforce, SAP, HubSpot, and many other enterprise systems. And that came from the work on the AI side. So we continued to implement even the enterprise features into the blockchain project, kernel.xyz, and took it further. But by the end of 2025, it was very, very clear for us that the AI race is where we should be, no matter what. And the reason for it is almost everyone we spoke about our technology that we were building now called, and we given it a name, OpenBox, because you're turning a black box into an open box, something that's, you know, you don't know what's going on, to something where it's very transparent and visible what's going on, and providing a governance. And the communications, the calls, the customers, we were getting a lot of traction. And as everybody knows, the blockchain sort of, you know, we were entering a winter of nothing like we've seen before, especially I think this last 6 to 8 months of what has been going on. But we had already decided that we would pivot more towards the AI. So because we had got to public testnet with the blockchain technology, let's just let it sit there. It's done, it works, been thoroughly tested, stress load tested, but you know, let's move forward. And by then, with the level of conversations we were having with the AI, we were already, you know, built the product and were doing a demonstration of the proof of concept of it, and to give people the clearest idea of what it does. So I'll walk you through it step by step. So you have agents, and everybody now uses agents pretty much. There's a lot of frameworks where you can use agents, and most people started with NA10 as a workflow product that allows you to, you know, build agents and create a workflow of what one does and another does. And then you've got the heavy execution frameworks like temporal technologies, Mastra, LangChain, LangGraph, but tools to help you monitor and log what these agents are doing, like Langsmith and sort of many other observability tools. And the observability tools are that the agent's running just like a normal application and it's creating a log, and that log is after the event. So whatever the agent does, you have no control of it. It just does it in this black box, creates a log, lots of an audit trail, a simple log, and later on you look at it and sort of go, did the agent do what it was tasked to do? Did it behave? Did it do something naughty, I call it? Did it stay on piece? Did it stay on goal or not? But you can't do anything but say, okay, sadly, this is what happened, but you can't control it. And the technology that we had built was literally something you now embed into the agent. So when you build your agent and you code it, you take our SDK, it's OpenBox.ai now, is not just the name of the product, it's the name of the company now. We are OpenBox.ai. We built SDK that you can retrofit in a way with a few changes to any execution framework. So whether it's N8N, Tempo, Oral, Master, LangChain, LangGraph, whether it's Cloudflare's SDK agents, Claude's SDK agents, anyone embedded. And what we do is we become the firewall. So we basically make it that no matter what you do, what the agent does, whether it does what everybody thinks inference, talk to a model to say, what should I do? Give me a plan. What's the next task? We communicate in terms of intercept that before that goes out to the model, and when the model sends a response, we intercept it again. If it wants to read or write a file, if it wants to talk to a tool, if it wants to talk to MCP, Model Context Protocol, if it wants to talk to other agents, A to A, if it wants to talk to its memory, if the model has sent back some code and said, run this code, or I would recommend to create this PDF, you use this library, and utilize it, which means it has to run inside the agent as a sandbox. We can intercept, and we do intercept everything before any of that happens and after it. So before the call and after when the result comes back. And then we apply two sort of methods. One are deterministic, and the other is sort of more guardian agent. So the first one is we apply policies and guardrails, and these are deterministic. And we always get asked this question, what does that mean? Basically what it means is that we actually apply just code, your normal if then else, if a value is above this size or below that size. So it's very, very it's simple code. Compliant with what's called OPA. It's a standard for policies, and basically this code in a programming language called Rego means that you as a company, if you've got a policy in your company for governance which says that this agent, if the agent sort of asks the model for something that comes back that it is not right, the agent should never even get its hands on it, and we intercept it before and after, so we can make sure that is the agent sending something it shouldn't send, like let's say internal company information to a model which shouldn't be exposed. If you're running open source hosting models yourself, maybe you can be a little bit more relaxed and lax with what the agent communicates to the model, because the model will be ring fenced to make sure it's not sending data out anywhere, or it's been reinforcement learning fine-tuned to be able to do things unique to your organization. But the key thing is the deterministic part of policies and then guardrails is pretty. It's the deterministic part. It's highly performant, very, very quick. You get an answer and the agent goes, okay, I can do this, or I'm not allowed to do this. And then second, when the agent is actually trying to do his task and it's going through many steps, internally from one to the next, and that agent might call other agents to help it. It might spawn other agents, and not just like on a same level of sister, parent to parent level, agent to agent. But you notice these days when you work with agents, agents will on the fly dynamically spawn other agents, and then you have to control the other agents. And most people will go, okay, well, the way we control an agent is we put it in the system prompt, what it should and shouldn't do, how it should react, and so forth. But that's just not enough. So you've got the deterministic part, and then we have what we call behavioral context, which is the behavioral part is we have another AI model, which is acting like a firewall, whose job is to look at the whole of these steps, the whole of the workflow that the agent is running or doing, and ask, is it actually still on track? Or has it started to have gold drift if it's going away? And we score it, and we score it with the sort of OWASP, which is a security vulnerability framework, which sort of says that OWASP has said that here are the top 10 vulnerabilities that you need to make sure you avoid when you're building AI agents. And what we do is we, on the fly, check against those vulnerabilities and score the actions the agent is taking against that framework, and give it a score based on how did it behave with a policy, how did it behave with a guardrail, and then ultimately, is it on track, still going towards where its goal should be. And with that score as a total, you're able to bring in a third component, which is human in the loop, which means if the agent is not doing what it's supposed to do, you can kill it, halt it, pause it, bring in human in the loop. So have it that you actually ask an external human, hey, you know what, this agent is trying to do this and blah, blah, blah. Do you want to really let it do this? Should it carry on, or should it be shut down? So, and I come back to this. All of this that we've been building was really predicated on the fact that in 2023, 2024, because of what I was looking at, I was starting to look at the initial drafts of what's called the EU AI Act. And this is like being formed as a regulation, and it's a regulation with teeth, meaning that once it's fully enforced, if you as a system developer of agentic systems are building something more critical than a simple chatbot. And remember, chatbots are dead now. I mean, these days, a simple chatbot, if you're building and selling that, you're not going to be around very long. But you're building true agentic systems, which ultimately, at the other extreme, may end up in physical AI, meaning robots, autonomous vehicles, which obviously you have with Tesla and stuff already, and Waymo and these things. You don't want AI to do something that's not controlled. So you've got to that stage now where we've got the EU AI Act, and then there's also the ISO 42001 framework, and then you've got the NIST framework, NIST framework, and then you've got a couple of others, AI UC1 framework that now in Silicon Valley, I'm in San Francisco right now, which is becoming very prominent. So you've got a lot of frameworks for how agents should act and behave. You've got regulation on top of it. And we saw all of this starting to happen through 2025 especially. So by the end of 2025, we had built the product, and we were literally just months from launching it. And at that time, we secured our seed round, which made it that the total amount we raised was 5 million. And on the March 31st of this year, we launched the company here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley area as OpenBox.ai, announcing the seed round of 5 million. And basically, we've gone to market. So we're like, 3 months old now? So now I think what's interesting is for everyone is to explain what has happened in these 3 months. And I think that's far more interesting than you can ever imagine. So we've launched the product. We've already built it, integrated into these execution frameworks, and literally immediately we're talking to the likes of the CTO of Mastra, that's the TypeScript framework for execution of agents. We're talking to the founders of Temporal Technologies. I'm meeting, because we launched the company here in Silicon Valley, I'm meeting with people from Anthropic, from OpenAI, from Google, from Apple, from everybody. And the community here is just amazing, and the level of depth of knowledge that people have. And I say to everybody whenever I travel away from Silicon Valley right now, it feels as though 1 minute I'm talking to PhDs with deep sort of depth knowledge of AI and everything that's going on, because you're meeting with the engineers from Anthropic and OpenAI regularly. You travel away and it feels like people have just started to read AI for Dummies. And I don't wish to belittle anybody, but literally that's how far and extreme it feels, because you're talking to people who are just building simple workflow agentic systems and obviously getting value from either their own internal automation, or being a consultant or a software house building these for other companies. And then you're in the world where the technology that is what allows you to do that and beyond is what you're talking to people on a daily basis. So that's one of the great things that I've noticed here. The second thing that happened for us is, as we launched the company, we started to talk to huge clients. I mean, I'm talking about, we've spoken with all of the top banks in the world, and we were very lucky thanks to one of the things that we did was we applied for what's called the FinTech Technologies sort of accelerator cohort, which is part of Accenture's program in London. We got accepted and chosen out of so many hundred startups as the 8 or 10 group that they would endorse and put forward. And Asim, who lives in in Manchester, but has been the last 3 months going to London every week for 3 or 4 days to attend this accelerator, this, where they guide you, they teach you everything from pitching to what's the value proposition, how should you put this in front of corporates and enterprises, because Accenture, as you know, is a huge organization and works for just about every enterprise, bank, healthcare, you name it, telco in the world. So they're a great way into these organizations, and they've been introducing us to just about everyone. So that's how we've been able to talk to all the banks, all the investment banks, the telcos, people like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Bosch. We've been talking to everybody, you name it. So we're now at the stage where people are trying to tell us that it's great that you've created this technology that does what we call runtime governance, and it's the first time I'm saying it. So we're embedded in the agent. We're not observability. We're not afterwards. But some of the unique features is that because of the world from blockchain, we cryptographically attest and record everything the agent does. So even though we're there at the time of when the agent is about to do something, check its action before it does it, look at the response and check inside the response so it's not leaking, exfiltrating any data, PII, whatever it may be, information or toxic language, all these things. We are cryptographically attesting all the data, which means that when you actually take that data, which later you can show to a regulator. So if your agent went off to do something that it shouldn't have done or made a decision that was critical, you've always got a way to go back and look at that data. And what we do is we map all of that cryptographically attested data on the fly to those frameworks like the EU AI Act, NIST framework, and ISO 42000, and any other that is seen as a prominent framework. So that means as a user of our agentic sort of a governance system, whether you are in compliance or not, literally on the moment it's happening. So it's not like afterwards, let's look at the data and see whether we are compliant or not. You literally know if you're not, and again, you can control the agent, stop it, halt it, give it other instructions if need be. So that's where we were when we launched the product. We then ended up meeting, through myself being here in Silicon Valley and Asim, we attended a HumanX event, which is a big AI summit. And the number of customers we were meeting were literally saying, it's fantastic that you're doing this at runtime. And it's amazing that we have all this control and the ability to be compliant with regulation. But really, most of us are at the moment at the point of developing agentic systems, and we're using products like Cursor and Codex and so forth. And where are you with that? And we were like, well, the agents, the coding agents that you're using, yes, we can control and manage them, because coding agents at the time when you're writing code and you're using agents is very different to agentic systems that are working in production. But we were literally requested that could you please put your governance into what we call a shift left, into the coding agents, into the IDEs, the integrated development environments like Cursor, Claude Code, Codex, GitHub Copilot, and control at that level. And for us, it was like, yeah, it's easy. We have an SDK. It works with any agent. So what the agent does really, and how you manage and govern the policies, guardrails, and things that you do at each different level is really your policies. We provide you the standard templates for them, but you can do whatever you like. So we literally had one huge, I think literally I describe it as maybe one of the biggest investment banks in the world asking us, and healthcare providers, that we really want to govern these coding agents. So within weeks, we put a proof of concept together to prove that we can govern these agents. And that then took on the story to the next level. And the next level is that we realized that if we have governance of agents of when you are coding using agents, and remember we use agents where we can code Web 2 applications. You don't have to create agents to create agents. You can just do Web 2. But if you're using agents to create agentic systems, agents, then really you want to be able to track and trace, or what we call have lineage or provenance of which developer created which agent, and track that agent from the moment of its birth to going through its CI/CD pipeline to its staging environment, testing environments, whatever it may be, all the way to production. So if you are ever wanting to know how did an agent, why did it behave, why did it do what it did, you could go all the way back and trace it to the not just the agent that was helped to help you code it, but the developer that was, and the kind of prompts that the developer was asking the agent. And because you've got governance and control there, you can stop the developer accidentally writing prompts and things which may exfiltrate, may do some harm. And that now has become a staple product. And that, what I've just described, is what we're going to be launching at the end of July. And where the digital identity comes in, and again, this is a very critical part of integrating with identity providers like Okta and Microsoft's Entra, if people are familiar with that. To manage and control and identify an agent, you need to give it a name, give it an identity. And because we're in the blockchain world when we started to give every agent a distributed digital identity. So that way, and we realized very early on that you might build agentic systems within the confines of your company. So you might have 1 to 1,000 agents, 1,000,000 agents, but ultimately agents need to talk to other agents, which is the A2A part of the Google protocol of the A2A and others, mechanisms. And each one of these agents would need a unique identity. But ultimately, when one agent is talking to another one, you need to know, can they trust each other? Are they communicating with the right agent, or is somebody created some rogue agent? So this digital identity part is very critical. So what we do is we've created our own layer where we can give a digital identity unique if you are an organization that is not using like the digital identity providers, or like Okta or Microsoft Entra or any other platform out there. And the idea behind that is so we are able to trace and create lineage and this provenance across the whole, you could call it, supply chain. So for instance, if one company's agents talk to another one, that's sort of like a supply chain, and you need to be able to control and manage that and know whether each agent can trust each other or not, and ultimately be able to identify what has gone on. So hopefully and I'm open to sort of take this conversation in any
Yeah,
direction you think, but
definitely.
that gives you
You've been both. You've been
ideas.
going on for so many minutes, and it's been fun working along with what you have been saying. It was supposed to be more like a back and forth kind of
Right.
conversation, like I ask a question, you
Sorry.
answer. But it's why I didn't want to cut you off is like your explanations are very simple to understand, and you kind of covered every like most important aspect of the project. Now we don't want to forget that it's a 1 hour AMA, and I want to give the community a chance to ask some questions, right?
Of
So
course.
because of that, I'll just be asking one simple question, and once I ask a question and you answer, we want to spare some few minutes so we can get some questions from the community. So what I
Please.
just want to say is, one thing I found interesting is that there seems to be a consistent pattern throughout, the journey of OpenBox, from being selected among top startups to meeting enterprise customers at global events to receiving very specific requests from like integrating governance into coding agents, which is something I found very interesting. It feels like OpenBox has been shaped by real world enterprise conversations than just assumptions. And this is something that I always encourage every project team, every project owners to do, to attend events, to get feedback, to partner with organizations, to see what more they could offer rather than just creating projects without value. They should create one with value and one that people would have interest in. But now looking back at all of this, journey, all of these things that you guys have gone through, what piece of like feedback, or will I say customer feedback, or something after all of this several, meeting being chosen by this organization, these startups, what piece of information or feedback have your team gotten from them that has fundamentally changed how you guys think about AI trust and governance?
Yeah. So no, excellent question. So number one, you're absolutely right. You can build the best product because you have this idea that you think you're building the best product, unless you happen to be, formerly Steve Jobs, and you have a lot of money behind you, and you can explore things, and you bring things which have what's called latent need. You're ahead of the market about what they may need. But speaking with customers and understanding what they really need, and that's what's brought about this acronym of FDE, forward deployment engineers. So literally, I mean, you can see Amazon AWS is investing $1 billion into creating forward deployment engineers. Every company you talk about is now saying that's what we need. We need engineers that are working inside the organizations to truly understand what is going on, so you can actually deliver what they want. So for number one, I absolutely say to you that we've gone from where it's, you should be listening to your customers and, putting their needs in front. But here, the model is changing to let's put our feet of our people on the ground with you, working to help you build and develop, pair program, do all these things. So you're much more receptive to the requirements of the customer. So that's number one. Now, the second question about, working with customers, and, what are we hearing? This thing at the moment with trust and AI is everybody's writing and doing something with AI. Everybody's moving into the marketplace in some way, replacing either, people have been fired, digital twins, if you want to say more AI. But the market is still very, very early. So what we're hearing from a lot of customers, and is supported by reports by Gartner, Forrester, and all these sort of big organizations that do massive surveys, is that the amount of systems, of agentic systems in production, is either not very high, or due to the lack of governance is failing. So that is something we are hearing all of the time, and we see it by speaking to people on the ground. But you have a lot of people who are using AI to develop code, whether it's agentic code or Web 2 code. So the reason you see companies like say Cursor worth what they are, companies who are working in that area of the early stage of coding agents and how to build and use AI have seen a lot more traction, because that's where the world is at the moment. But the question we've been asked by, to give an example, we were introduced by Accenture to Vodafone, and we've been selected by them now to do some proof of concepts with them. We're talking with investment banks. We've been selected by them to do proof of concepts. So you might ask the question, which is like, well, why are you doing proof of concepts? Why don't they just buy your project and use them? This week we secured a major bank in the UK, but again, nobody's going to roll out technology like ours, which is mission critical from zero to hero overnight, because one, they're going to have to check that is our product capable. You're not talking about actions at human speed where somebody's using an interface, a website, clicking buttons. We're talking about agents doing things at lightning machine to machine speed. So what we're seeing is then this is something we're learning, and I put my hands up. Our customers saying, we want to do a proof of concept, we want to do a pilot, when we're absolutely certain that we know how to use your product, whether it's the SaaS version or the on-prem fully air-gapped version, which is majority of our customers, by the way. No, they all want to run our product air-gapped on-prem because they want to keep their data sovereignty and everything else safe. But that's what we're learning. So what we've learned over the last 3 months in a very quick way is that we have some small customers who are running the odd agent, doing something small using our SaaS platform, paying $200-300 and no problem at all. But the real enterprise people are taking this very, very carefully. So maybe that's the value I can give you in the conversation.
Thank you very much for that very solid answer. Really appreciate that. From my end, I have a few more questions, but like I said, I want to be generous because it's basically for the community that I know and investors that these are being built for. So let's get some questions from the community. So guys, I can see a lot of questions in the chat. Let me take one from the chat and then we'll take a live question too. Or we can also do it both ways. Let's take a question from live while I pick out a question from the chat. So let's have Benkis. Benkis, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello, Benki.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much for Moonshine for the opportunity. And Tia, you are a wonderful speaker. I've been listening for quite some time now, and the point that you've made are just fascinating. I just have one simple question because I visited your website and you said the trust level of the project is about 99%. Well, I wanted to ask, in the situation where the trust level, is broken, will there be like a compensation for the users of your platform? I don't know. That's my
Sorry, what do you
question.
mean by compensation of users of our platform? Can you just expand on that? I mean,
That is if yeah, I said I visited your website and I saw that you said the website was written that the project is 99% secure. The trust level is 99% rather. And I was thinking, if level is 99%, part of the day is that maybe something happened or something, mysteriously goes wrong, and maybe the trust level is, I mean, the trust is broken. I was asking if there be like compensation for the users of the platform who, rely on this trust because of the trust they have on the trust platform, and because the trust is broken, I don't know if there will
okay,
be
I
like
see
a
what you mean.
compensation
Okay.
for
So
the
think of it this way, right? So number one, as OpenBox, we're just a technology. We don't really apply or create the policies or guardrails. That's up to the organization. So if the organization doesn't create the relevant controls using our product, we're not the ones liable for it because we're not the ones running and managing it. That it is their policies and the guardrails. So let's say as an organization, you can use our SaaS-based product right now for free. The basic for a couple of agents, you can use it right now for free. So you can spin up and start using it, and it doesn't cost you anything. But like you said, we are just applying, we intercept the calls, we apply the policies, the guardrails, we map across to the OWASP framework. There's a trust score, and it's the policies and guardrails and the controls that you will determine whether, if the trust score goes down, whether the agent should have an autonomy to carry on, or it should be halted, or a human in the loop should be brought about. So, but what I'd like to add is why I think your question is more important is, as people build agentic systems, and another conversation we are having right now with many companies is that we are talking to companies who are asking about the risk and liability for insurance of agentic systems, right? Which is that if you build an agentic system that is in the critical levels and it goes wrong, who's held liable? And I think you guys will know of a case that happened in Germany recently where an agentic system gave some information about two individuals, which Google's Gemini gave, and Google, it was wrong. It made the two guys look like they were fraudsters. So they took Google to court and they won. And the court in Germany basically said, Google, look, you might wash your hands of this and sort of say, look, it's an agentic system and it's a model that's providing the information. We don't control it. So why should you fine us? Why should you penalize us? But the German courts have turned around and said, no, actually, that's not right. You trained the models, you gave the data to the models, and you didn't put the relevant controls and guardrails. So you are liable. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, yes, yes. It has answered my question. Thank you very much for the
You're welcome.
answers. Thank you. Thank you, Moonshine, for the opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Benkis, for asking a question. You're welcome. So a question here from the chat. So Dali is asking, if OpenBox succeeds in becoming the trust layer for enterprise AI, what does success actually look like from your perspective? Is it widespread adoption, becoming an industry standard, influencing future
Okay.
AI
Yeah. Again.
regulations, or something?
Okay. So again, excellent questions, and I'll say why. So one of the things that we've seen is we launched the company and did a press release on the 31st of March. And then 2 days later, on the 2nd of April, Microsoft announced with their agentic governance toolkit. And then literally in these, I'd say, 3 months, April, May, June, 3 months, we've seen so many players come to market to do with, we can provide AI governance, that the market is becoming saturated. I mean, literally, there's only a handful of us that have managed to raise money, and some of us have raised money based on, like, say, just, I call it a small amount of 5 million. We've got competitors and incumbents right now who have managed to raise, even at seed round, $30 million. So, we're a fraction of them. So what it now comes down to it is, like you say, you have a very saturated pool of companies all chasing the same thing. So one, can you differentiate with your technology stack? Are there some features that you can differentiate with? What is it that's going to make it that one company wins over the next? So we at OpenBox, we are very clear with how we believe we see ourselves in this space. So we see a lot of projects coming. We're very well financed, very good teams, very technical teams. So differentiating on just saying I'm a better software developer, or I'm Tahir and I've got 40 years experience more than anybody else, is not going to cut it. It's not enough. So is it feature by feature? Are we building faster features? Are we building features that are going to be better, unique, more unique? That's one way of staying ahead of the market. And I know we've spoken with our existing VCs, and we are very, very fortunate that in our seed round, our, you could call it lead investor, is a VC firm called Taiki Ventures, and it basically is co-founded by a guy called Prasant Malik, and he was the co-creator of Apache Cassandra, the biggest sort of distributed database in the world. I think it was like employee number 35 at Meta or Facebook when they first started. And we have these sort of people helping and guiding us. So how do we create something? So myself and Asim have this vision, which is that we want to be the unified, neutral trust layer in the world. So whereas Microsoft might have built their agentic toolkit and made it open source, almost every company we talk to doesn't want to take on the overhead of taking an open source project, compiling it, building it, rolling it out, asking the community to help support it. They want something with solid teeth behind it to make sure that it's going in the right direction. You continue to check for bugs. You continue to build new features. So anybody could pick up the Microsoft Agentic Toolkit and start building with that and say, we're offering it as a licensed product service. So again, it just makes the market much, much more fragmented. So our goal and the story we give everybody is that if anybody can pick up vibe coding tomorrow, anybody could knock something together, but how many people have actually supported systems and build systems at scale, mission critical within regulated environments? I've come from a background of 40 years. I've been in VP of engineering of like Lloyd's Banking Group. I've worked in the most strict regulated environments on the planet at scale. So one of the things that companies that we speak to use as the way to differentiate us from others is others can build a technology, but which does your company have the know-how, domain knowledge to help actually understand how this product may operate and what we need from you from a compliance, are you SOC 2 compliant, blah, 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 all these requirements that they have. So I would say it is right now a dog eat dog world. Who are the winners? I think they're never going to be just one, but there will be at least a few that will win this, but we'll see a lot fail by the end of this year.
Oh, thank you so much, Deli. I hope that answered your question. But if you have any more questions, you can head to the project, official group on Discord and ask whatever more question you have. Thank you so much for throwing that in. Before, let me see. I saw a question here from Elsing. So, well, I think I muted someone. Let's have a question from Jacob. Jacob, you can go ahead with your question. Please just keep it at one question so we can see if we can put in one more question. Thank you.
Sure. Hey Ty, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Cool. My question is about AI agents. If an AI agent, if it makes a high impact decision that sometimes leads to financial or let's say consequences or legal consequences, how does the OpenBox establish a verifiable chain of let's say accountability that cannot be tampered with?
Yeah. So like I said, what we do is we cryptographically attest everything, and we create, if you're familiar with the world of blockchain, in blockchain, obviously, when you record transactions and everything is cryptographically attested with a hash, and you end up with a Merkle root at the top of it, that's literally the technology we use as a way of keeping a record of what the agent is doing. So that way it is tamper-proof, tamper-evident, meaning you cannot be changed because you're literally changing the world of cryptography. And as a world of blockchain, and that's where we've come from, creating it so that you have full confidence in the data is number one. That's the most paramount, and it is one of the things that differentiates us from a lot of our competitors, because a lot of our competitors are just sort of saying we provide runtime governance, but they just create normal logs, and their view is we'll write the logs to databases that, let's say, AWS or GCP or Azure offer, which are write once, read only, so you can never change them. But again, you're relying on the underlying technology, whereas with us, we provide cryptographic proofs for everything with, and again, I would suggest to you, if you sign up to our platform, it's, by default, we give you a number of agents as examples when we've loaded data there for you, and you can see all of this working in practice.
Nice. Interesting. I guess if I have more question about this, I'm just gonna ask the Tim or someone else. Thank you so much. Over to
You're
you,
welcome.
Moonshine.
Yeah, thank you so much. So a question here from the chat was asking, AI governance is often viewed as a cost center rather than a competitive advantage. How do you shift that mindset and demonstrate that trustworthy AI can actually accelerate innovation instead of limiting it?
Yeah. Okay. So normally people do view things of what I call as observability-based products as a cost center, meaning you literally need it whether you like it or not, because somewhere you need to show you're compliant and you've held on to all the information. But because we are runtime governance, we're like a component that is there at the operational level. It's not after the event. We're literally in there, and we're helping you make sure that the agent, and remember, the agent is speaking to a brain, a model, and the brain is telling it what to do, and the agent could end up doing almost anything. So to keep the agent in check in the sense of making sure it does what it's supposed to do is seen not as a cost center. It's literally seen as a way to stop liability, stop a risk. So it's a very active component within the operational part of we're running an agentic system. So really, we see that we don't see companies that we're talking to sort of think it as, oh my God, do we really need to pay for this? Why can it not just be let to do its own thing? They're not seeing it as that. They're seeing it as that it is a staple part. And, to give you an example, one of the technologies that really took off is what they call evals. Evals were basically it's like testing. It's like being able to sort of go, okay, I'm building an agent. I'm using it with a particular model. I'm going to check the prompts that I'm creating or the prompts that the agent will use, and the results that are coming back from the models, are they the kind of results that we would like, or are they wrong? And if they're wrong, how do we modify the prompts to be better so there's a feedback loop? Or how do we fine tune if we have access to the model itself so it behaves more? But even those evals and that method has been proven that it can, it's got faults. So the way we've done it is it's the deterministic part of policies and guardrails has made sure that no matter what happens, the agent and the brain, the model, working together, there's always something that is going to make sure they behave no matter what. So there is no probabilistic answer. There is some way of keeping it on track.
Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Ava. Let's get a question from. Are you there? I don't know if you're
Yeah,
having some mic issues. Try to leave and rejoin and see if you can join in, Ophir.
yeah, I'm still
Okay,
available.
we don't still have you. So let's get another person. Jordan Jody, you can go ahead with a question, mate.
Can you guys hear me?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you very much. So my question is going to be concerning how you guys are going to be, explaining your AI agents to people. Many AI platforms, they explain what the AI did after it has already made the decision or the action, but my question is, how does OpenBox help organizations understand why an AI agent is about to make a decision before it is executed? Can your platform explain the AI's reasoning in a way that allows the teams to review or to maybe challenge or stop the kind of like a risky decision before it happens?
Yeah. So I guess the way to describe it is the question you're really asking is you can build agentic systems and you can go with what's there today, and you can just say the agent will behave, it'll do what it'll do, and I'm getting logs. Yeah, okay, nothing, that is the world we're in today. And there's nothing stopping any organization, any company build on that. But the moment you are in an industry where you're making critical decisions, whether it's insurance decisions, moving money around, healthcare decisions, the world becomes under the form of some kind of regulation. And that's where the people who manage that regulation and who ask for compliance, who ask for security, all sort of jump on top of you and sort of say, look, what have you built? What processes and systems have you put in place? And if you're familiar with like SOC 2 accreditation, if you're familiar with, whether it's GDPR and all of these regulations, all of this stuff basically forces you to want to implement control systems. Okay, and what we built at OpenBox is just another one of those control systems. And we're one of many, obviously, quite a saturated space, but we are doing our best to differentiate ourselves with technologies with our ability to integrate any platform.
Did that answer your question, Jordan?
Yeah, that's much I really appreciate the answer.
All right, thank you so much for my question. Thank you also. This was a very interesting question. And with the unique here, I wanted to ask, are you an AI or are you an agentic AI? Did you hear me? Yeah, I think Telegram is acting weird. Are you there, Tahir? Can you hear me? Okay, I don't know what's happening, but I think we lost him on the mic. But we can definitely just wrap up the AMA. I also wanted to give you a chance to give the concluding statements, but I don't know what's happening. But thank you all so much for coming out to ask a question. And if you want to get more information about OpenBox, you can check their website, give them a follow on X, or you can follow them on Discord and definitely on LinkedIn. That is where you get updates about the project. And see you guys in the next AMA. Thank you all so much for joining.